So, but Puerto Rico was great. Prior to leaving to Puerto Rico, I left Puerto Rico pregnant with my oldest son. And so, but when I left Puerto Rico, I had orders to go to Spain. And when I found out I was pregnant with my son, I revised my orders to not go to Spain and ended up going to Jacksonville, Florida instead. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but the reason why I did that was I, as a single mother at the time, felt apprehensive about wanting to be a single parent overseas. I didn't know what to expect in that. I was nervous. I didn't have any resources, and I wasn't sure if that was the right choice for me. So when I went to Jacksonville, I went for Jacksonville because my son's father's parents were local there, and I was assured that we would have some sort of resources to help out with my son. So I agreed to that. So I ended up at NAS Jax. And NAS Jax was an interesting place. I personally am not a fan of Jacksonville, but NAS Jax was a fairly decent facility. I have many questions though, but I think those have been addressed. But I did end up, after I had my son, my son was a difficult delivery. I got a bad infection after he was born, a postpartum infection, really bad. About within a week of him being born, that I had to be admitted for a few days with IV antibiotics and all kinds of stuff. And again, need I mind you, I really didn't have family other than my in-laws, who showed up at the hospital, collected my son, and were able to take care of him while I handled that. But I did face some adversity though. I noticed that in my career, what I also couldn't understand and I couldn't wrap my brain around was I don't want to say animosity, but the hostility I got from other women. I wasn't prepared for that because I just want to get along with everybody, and I didn't understand why my presence would rub some women the wrong way, particularly in leadership. Nurses, Navy nurses particularly. And one of them that I worked for, she was a Navy nurse. She was older, obviously. I think she was a commander. But it's as if she just hated anything about me, my presence alone. I felt like I was trying to do the best that I could, but I didn't want to burden anybody because that had been my MO for my entire life, was not to burden anybody. So even though I was struggling and I was just trying to make things work and getting to work on time, making sure my son was taken care of, just so many moving parts, even if I was falling apart on the inside, nobody would ever see that on the outside. Because any women who have been in the military as a single mom, or especially in that time period before then, the military is not a welcoming place for single moms. It's a man's world. We want to pretend that, they have lactation rooms now, they have, you get more time off, but those things were not realities. At that time, us women only got 6 weeks of maternity leave postpartum, and then you had to be back to duty. So if you were on a ship, guess what? You went back to the ship. If you were like me, I was at the hospital, I went back to work. 6 weeks. Puppies get 8 weeks. Why do I only get 6 weeks? This is crazy. But that's not enough to bond, and you have to find a daycare for this newborn. It's overwhelming, it's a lot. And I did feel a little resentment, to be honest, because those same demands are not placed onto the father. They're not placed on the male partner. All the demands, where's your dependent care plan? So what's a dependent care plan? The dependent care plan is a document that you fill out showing that if you have to stay late, who's going to pick up your child? If you have to have duty, who's going to take care of your child? Who's going to do all these things? And it's kind of unrealistic, to be honest, because we're all pulled away from our homes. Where is our family unit? Where's our support units, if we have any? We don't have any other than each other. And the military, to be honest, doesn't really provide a lot of resources for active members. They say they do, but they really don't. Like childcare, I mean, that should be a given, right? I have to apply for it, but then I have to pay copious amounts for childcare, and this childcare is not even open 24 hours to meet the demands the military is demanding. So there's a disconnect. The military demands X, Y, and Z, but the resources are not available to help support that. So that causes military members, particularly women, to become desperate, and they can make desperate, bad decisions. Leave your kids with the wrong people, or unattended, or I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, but they have pushed a lot of people into making decisions sometimes that are less than ideal. And then when you have pushback from leadership at the time in the early 90s, well, your kid didn't come in your sea bag, or your spouse didn't come in your sea bag, or that's not my problem. You don't need to be here. And it was a lot when you're just trying to survive, really. So I was only in Jacksonville for a year, and then I did a no-cost duty swap, is where you find somebody who has, in the Navy, who has the same job, same rank, same time left. You have to mirror what you're doing where you are for you to swap. So it's just a body for a body, and the Navy doesn't pay for that. It's called a no cost, so you got to pay for your own transportation and vice versa, and you just swap places. Again, this is where the universe had a different agenda. As rare as it is, there was another female in San Diego that was looking to get back to Jacksonville. Same job, same rank, same time. It was just, she had been looking for somebody, so it just turned out perfect. So we ended up swapping places. She went to Jacksonville, I went to San Diego. So I needed to be back in San Diego for a number of reasons. One, my family was there. My brothers, my dad at the time. I wasn't really in talking terms with my mom, but my dad was there, and I was trying to build a relationship with him. And I thought that, we could do that around my son, and I really wanted my son to know his family as well. So I arrived in San Diego, and it was interesting. I liked it. It was another thing about growing up poor in Pomona was I had never really gone to San Diego. As close as it is, I didn't have a car, I didn't have transportation, I didn't have money, so I didn't do those things. So to be living in San Diego was a great experience, to be honest, and of course the cost of living was nowhere near what it is now. And to live pretty close to base or to the house, to Balboa, which is where I worked, to come and go. I had a great babysitter. Things were just starting to come together, and I felt like my life was actually starting to find its sea legs, if you will. And then 9/11 happened. So that's where we come into the good stuff. So San Diego was pretty boring until 9/11 happened. I just remember that I was getting ready to transfer, and I had got orders to Spain again, because I always said that if it was meant to happen, it will present itself again, and I was offered those orders again. Ironically, I was ordered Puerto Rico again too, and I was like, I already did Puerto Rico, I'm going to go to Spain. So I had orders to Spain, getting ready to do my pack out, I already shipped my car off, and I remember getting up in the morning, and I was getting ready for work, watch the news every day, and I was getting ready for work so I could take my son to daycare, and I just remember watching the TV. I had my brush like this, and they were talking about what had happened with the first tower, thinking that it was just a fluke. We all know the story. And then as I'm watching the TV, I'm watching the plane hit the second tower. And I'm like, what just happened? And I just remember freezing. Like, I was like, what? No, wait, what? This can't be real. And then, you know, the phones start blowing up because I think cell phones were still new. We had pagers still and phones. And as the first time in my life where I felt scared in a long time, I hadn't felt that kind of fright. I felt scared because I didn't know what to do, but I also felt, as crazy as it seems, I also felt kind of excited. I hate to say that, but because I was being called to action. That's where the excitement came in. I was like, this is our moment. I was like, I'm ready. Roger up. Let's do this. Let's make this happen. I felt like this is what I'm here for. This is what all this was for. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the cards for me to deploy in that situation as well. I was platformed to go out on one of the ships with one of the orthopedic surgeons. However, I was already under orders to transfer in a few weeks, so they took me off of that platform and put somebody else. So I didn't end up deploying, but I did end up going to Spain still, October 2001, so not a few weeks after 9/11. Travel was interesting at that point. Let me back up a little bit. The one thing that I do remember, that's the first time I've ever experienced, and the last time I've ever experienced, where we've been into Defcon Delta. And I didn't even think that was possible, because you'll see Alpha Bravo, sometimes Charlie, but I've never seen Delta, and that's the most secure that you can ever get. So everything was shut down. And that's, you get to the gate, and usually it's just, everybody come in, to work, but this was strict. We're checking everything, we're looking at everything. Everything felt so tense. You could feel it. You could taste it. And I just remember driving into work with one of my coworkers. She gave me a ride to work because I had shipped my car off. And we were listening to it. And then as we're listening to the news, the Pentagon. And I'm like, what is going on? It felt so overwhelming. It felt like just so much was happening at once, but I didn't know what to do. Like, nobody knew what to do. It was just like breathtaking, I guess, is the word. And you're just watching this all happen in real time, and it was the most surreal thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's like everybody else, we didn't know what was going to happen. But again, when I went to Spain, it was as if nothing had happened. That's the weird part about it. I got to Spain and it was business as usual. We were still going out to the clubs, we were still going out to dinner, we were still going to the beach. It was safe, if you will. Like, there was no threats. It was as if we were so completely disconnected about what was happening with all of that, as if we weren't even a part of it. And it was interesting. What some people don't know about Spain too is that we occupy that base. It's not our base. It's the Spanish base. So we're guests on their base, but the hospital is ours. So I just remember one day, one day we have this big open field. One day there's nothing there. You drive by it every day. Nothing's happening. This is how amazing our fleet hospitals are. And the work that they do, the CBs, everybody. The CBs constructed a mini village with huts up in like a week because we were going to be bringing in personnel. They had assured us that it was going to impact the hospital, and they were 100% correct. I worked at the hospital as if nothing was going on. The next day I get up, I go to work. Not only are the huts there, but they had a whole field hospital set up at night. They did all this in the covert of nightness. While we slept, they set up an entire fleet hospital. ORs, ER, you name it. They were self-sustaining, and it was the most awesome sight I've ever seen. So throughout the night, what they were doing is that they would medevac to stabilize patients from Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever they were coming from. and they would either go to Landstuhl or they would come to Rota, and they were medevac there, stabilized, and then sent wherever they were going to go.